Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the CloudSapio Cybersecurity Sync. I'm joined today by Chris Houghtaling. He is from RaiseLink. Hi Chris, thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having me, appreciate it.
So I wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about RaiseLink. So if you could just give us an overview of what RaiseLink is and what you guys are looking to accomplish over there.
Sure, so RaiseLink is a software that we're building for the startup ecosystem. As most people who work throughout the startup ecosystem, like I have for accelerators and incubators and investors and government and NGOs, I realized something very, very interesting. All of our software that we use are in silos, right? And if you're a startup out there, you've filled out applications to apply to an investor and accelerator, and then you go to the next one, you spend another hour filling out the next one, another hour filling out the next one. And if you're an accelerator, incubator, or even many investors out there, you're getting so many applications that you don't know what to do with them all. So we're building one platform to really cut across and bring benefit to everyone versus making it just for accelerators or for investors or for startups. And by doing this, we're able to actually bring a lot of efficiencies and new data analytics to the ecosystem that are not available today. And that's just in version 1. So it's a software platform for the startup ecosystem, bringing data enhancements and efficiencies into the processes of how people go about selecting startups for their cohorts or for investment.
Gotcha. Thank you. I actually had the chance last week to meet with you and actually go through the platform a little bit. You give me like a quick demo of it. The flow of it and the way that it works seems really easily manageable from every side. It seems like it provides a lot of context to everybody, all the parties involved. And it seems like it's going to be very useful to startups, investors, all types of people out there that need this data. So where did this idea where did this start? How did this come about? What, how did RaiseLink become a thing?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I've worked throughout the startup ecosystem. And as I was doing all these projects, a World Bank sponsored project to help bring entrepreneurship to the former Yugoslavia about 10 years ago. I've worked with 40 or 50 accelerators, incubators, and the investors and whatnot. And I saw that for the most part, we're either using tools from 2015 or before, or back 10 years ago, they were still using Excel. And many people are still using Excel, especially when it comes to the process of looking for startups, having them apply, going through the screening process and the review committee scoring, and then managing that all in the pipeline. So as I've been going through all these organizations, I said, well, what could be better? And so I saw that the application screening process could be better. And then I said, okay, I've mentored thousands of startups. And I said, well, how are mentors assigned or connected to startups? And quite frankly, it's still with Excel. You have a list of a bunch of startups with their needs, and you have your Excel file with 100, 150 mentors with, going from A to who knows what letter, triple Z, in all of the different areas of information that they have. And you've got people at accelerators and incubators that are sitting there going through trying to line this up to match their startups with with mentors for every cohort. Mm-hmm. So, this is where I said, okay, all of these processes are pretty much built upon the foundation of what's the basic information of the startup, what is the accelerator or incubator looking for, or the event organizer, or even the investor looking for, and how can we just create an alignment process on doing this? Not using AI especially yet, because if somebody says we do AI matching and AI recommendation of startups, what that usually means is they've scraped data from PitchBook or Crunchbase, which we all know is the best source of bad data that we have in the ecosystem. And then they throw whatever they think their algorithm is that you should be using to select a startup, because they don't let you decide what that is. They put their own algorithm on the platform, and then they say, okay, now we're going to give you recommendations of startups. Whereas with RaiseLink, I said, okay, all of these processes, whether it's the screening process, the mentor management process, the knowledge center and business planning processes that happen through a cohort, these are all interconnected. And if we could build one software that takes the different modules of different software that are being used today by everyone in the ecosystem and put it into one, we can greatly enhance the efficiencies in data analytics. So with that, in version 1, flipping through a pitch deck of 5 to 10 minutes, let's call it a 7-minute average, which everyone does, means for 100 pitch decks or 100 startup applications, it's 700 minutes. With our system, we boiled that down to seconds per startup. And we've done that, as you saw in the inbox, with an alignment score and some basic information. So you can very quickly see, is this startup aligned with what we're looking for? And do they meet our minimum must-haves with a system that we built in? And is the solution that they're working on something that's interesting to us? So we take that first level screening down from an average of 7 or so minutes per startup down to literally a couple of seconds. The way we do that, unlike the way people are building platforms with AI, or unlike the way they've been traditionally doing it, is by taking over 40 sets of data and allowing every ecosystem partner, accelerator, incubator, investor, event organizer, go through and choose what is it they're looking for. Because the parameters are really the same, right? But some are more important to you or me, right? Whether they're pre or post revenue, that may matter to somebody. I may only want post revenue. To others, they may not care. IP status, what industry, what technology, where are they headquartered, where are they registered? These are all different parameters. So while we have an algorithm, we allow every single ecosystem partner, every user, to say on a 1 to 5 scale how important every data point is. So you're actually controlling the algorithm's calculations through this method. So therefore, with the background and what I saw about everyone just struggling through Excel files and trying to figure out things on pitch decks, we're actually organizing all that data into nice, efficient processes that's still controlled and personalized and predictive and proactive for the individual organization, the accelerator, the incubator, event organizer, investor.
Yeah, no, and it made perfect sense when I was looking at it. From my view, it everything seemed to be in the right place and where you need it, when you need it, which is perfect. I feel like this is kind of the world of SaaS, if you will. How do we take all of this Excel data and put it into a nice, easily digestible platform that we all can benefit from? It's kind of, and to me, it's funny that when I was looking at it, one of the thoughts that came to mind is with all the startups that are out there, it's funny that this never actually became a thing. There's not the big company out there that's doing what you guys are doing. When you think of the short-term rental space, you think of Airbnb or Vrbo or something like that. These are and for so many startups that could benefit from something like this, it's just strange to me that this a startup was never hey, why don't we do this? But I'm glad that you guys were able to jump ahead of that curve.
Well, I think there's one reason, a couple reasons why it's never happened, but there are startups that are out there, or companies out there that say they help facilitate the selection process. But that by itself is not really a business. I mean, there's so many places out there. You can go to Angels List, right, and filter and find investors to apply for. Too. Investors have sources like PitchBook, Crunchbase. Okay, PitchBook $16,000 for the first license. Crunchbase is a little more affordable. but you can go in and you can filter and look for startups. So there's hundreds, if not thousands of startups that do that. And that by itself is not a very innovative business. I think we've thrown some tweaks on there. We one other thing that we've added on and the release that we've have so far is an auto-generated executive summary. So I know most investors actually have MBA interns or grad students or recent graduates that they're paying, some of them $100, $200 an hour to write an executive summary of a startup, basically the pitch deck, what they find online.
Mm-hmm.
With our system, we automatically do all that through the profile builder that the startup fills out. And if they know what they're doing, the startup, if they know their business, they could be done with that in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that application's done. And it's going to go out every time they apply somewhere. All that same data is going to go out to that next application when they apply. So they don't have to retype it all in for the next application. But my point to this is that, if you just do a matching or a filtering system, that's not a business that's going to survive with revenue. So we know that we're adding more things on. And I mentioned the mentor management. When we add that on, that's actually, while it's going to give great benefits to accelerators and incubators to be able to have to manage and match mentors with startups, we'll also do things like automate the material, the information they have to collect for grant reports. But that gives us the foundation for the next module that we'll build on top of that. So we're really literally building a house room by room or floor by floor, and taking what we develop in each module and then adding onto it while connecting over. So this is what's going to make us unique, and where we as our own personal business model is going to stand out while still being priced for volume sales. So we're looking to make this very affordable to everyone in the ecosystem. And startups can always come on for free, actually, to RaiseLink.co.
When you mentioned that to me, I thought that was just like fantastic. Startups, the ones that I talk to the majority of the time are just so strapped, they're in their first round or whatever.
Yep. And
they're just having this at their disposal, being able to actually display what they are. And also they have the control over the platform too. They can manage all of the information in there as well.
Right. It's there. It's easy to update. In fact, yes, we ask, 85 questions, including, first name, last name, address, those are included in that 85. But we only ask 3 questions that are more than 50 characters. And 50% of all the questions are point and click. Most applications are boxes of up to 500 words. Our 3 questions are: what's the problem? What's the solution at 400 characters each? And what's the solution, or how does your solution or product work in 3 steps at 175 characters each step? So you have to be very succinct, and it makes it very easy, for the startups to go in and fill out their profile builder. It also helps the startups prepare for investment conversations, because what investors want are very quick answers to the point that show you understand your business. And RaiseLink helps you get to that point. And of course, then there's the auto-generated executive summary. That's an upgrade. It's an upgrade of $100 a year if you would like to be able to download that, print it, email it, take it to events to hand out, things like that.
And that executive summary is a summary of all of those intake questions, correct?
Correct. And they can update any question anytime they want.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And then that updating of that question updates that executive summary as well.
Correct. Yep.
It's fantastic. And it's so great to hear that you guys actually aren't jumping the gun on AI. I think, right now, I think companies are very, very eager. In the past year, we've seen so much push towards getting AI, even if it's not the best. How do we get it into our system? How do we get it just there so that way we can market it? Because, it seems to be the talk of the town is if you have AI, you're going to win sales. If you don't, you're not. You're going to be left in the dust. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that people are still out there looking for a really good, plausible solution to a problem and an easy way to solve it. and having an application. Software and applications aren't going anywhere. People are still going to need to manage them for a long period of time. AI might be the talk of the town, but I think taking the approach of not jumping on that and just focusing on the platform, which is really, really great, very user friendly, very easy to navigate. I think that's the right approach.
I appreciate that, and we have a excellent compensated advisor of ours that we brought on, Tom Milburn, who's former Silicon Valley, moved to Southeast Florida, and he's a gentleman technologist. He's an expert in AI and many other areas of technology. Ran innovation for some of the largest fintech companies in the country, or in the world, actually. And when I sat down and was bringing him onto the team as an advisor, I said, Tal, question for you, because every investor is now saying they want AI. Should we throw AI on this right away to be able to raise the flag like everyone else is doing and say, we've got AI?
Mm-hmm.
He said, no. And I was very glad, because it's my philosophy as well. We could do that. But in order to get AI to work, that means we need seriously large volumes of data. Right. And the only way to get that as a startup at the very beginning is go out there and scrape data off the internet. We all know that half the data on the internet is either misleading, inaccurate, or old and outdated, especially in the startup ecosystem, right? If the average startup has a 3 to 5 year lifespan, or 90% of startups fail within 3 years, and you go and scrape data off of any of these platforms that have been around for 10 or 15 years, well, by default, that 75% of what you're scraping is inaccurate. Mm-hmm. Not only that, one of these platforms that promote themselves as being a keeper of all data on startups and investment and whatnot, I did a demo with them, and I asked them to pull up a startup that I was involved in 8-9 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they had the funding was off by 40%. The team that was there when I was there was still on, and the purpose or the description of the startup was still there. And guess what? I said this was like 8 years ago I worked with them. Well, 7 years ago, the investors decided that they were going to sell off the data and repurpose the company. Wow. So the company is no longer doing the same thing that this particular all-knowing source of the startups says they're doing. The team hasn't been there for 7 years. And again, the investment round was off by at least 40%. Wow. So I don't want to do that. And I want to have good, clean data to train AI so that when we do turn the AI on, the people that are using this to make decisions are getting good quality data. In fact, the importance of data is so central in what we're doing that the first column on our dashboard for ecosystem partners, for the accelerators, incubators, investors, event organizers, the very first column in the inbox of startups is the last updated date for every startup. Mm-hmm. When was the last date they updated their data? So it's very important, and there's a time and place for AI, and you just got to make sure you bring it in at the right time and place.
100%. I echo everything you just said. I think that it's very important when you're in the earlier stages of a company or a platform or something, gather that data, take some time, let the users get used to the interface, and then slowly introduce these features, massage them into the AI experience.
Exactly.
So I kind of want to shift here just a tiny bit, because I want to find out a little bit more about you, Chris. Tell me a little bit about your background and kind of what led up to getting to RaiseLink. But yeah, all your career path, everything that kind of led up to that.
Okay, so I'm from Western New York, countryside, and I've moved 42 times in my life. Now, some of those were very quick, and I only count if I went past the city line. But I do count everything. So I was in the National Guard. There was 2 months for basic training, 2.5 months for advanced training. So I count those as 2 moves. There was my moved down I went to the University of Kentucky for my undergrad. There was my move down my freshman year, and I got involved in a lot of things, not always staying in the classroom. All good stuff, not terrible stuff, but got involved in a lot of things, and kind of missed the purpose that to get a college education, you have to be in the classroom. Even though I was getting A's and B's in classes, I had one professor stop me and said, "Oh, you're Mr. Houghtaling. You're going to fail my class." And I'm looking at my midterm that said 91%. And he asked me where I was the last couple of weeks. So I obviously shifted, but what I realized was I wasn't ready to sit in a classroom every day. I just loved working. I loved doing things. So I went back to Cleveland. Outside of Cleveland is where I went to high school and where my parents were, and stayed there, was working full time actually as a manager at a McDonald's. And my parents then all of a sudden said, "Well, Dad's being promoted again. We're moving to Chicago." So I went to the franchise owner of the McDonald's and basically said, "Hey, here's what's happening. Here's how much money I need if I'm going to stay." And he said, "Okay, I'll give you a 15% raise today and another 15% in 60 days when your parents move and you get the apartment so you can stay here." So I did that, went to the community college till I got on the dean's list, went back to Kentucky. So, right there is a bunch of moves all in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But the reason why I mentioned this is I ended up doing part of my MBA in Vienna, Austria, a joint program with the University of South Carolina, the Starla Moore School of Business, and the Business Economics University in Vienna, Austria. While I was there, I met my wife. Stayed there for a year, came back to the States for 6 years, went back over there. When I went back the last time, and all this back and forth is why I started with the fact that I've moved a lot, is that when I went back over, I started a sales consulting and coaching company because my professional background was sales leadership, sales development, sales management, and was doing great consulting and coaching Fortune 200 companies around Europe. And all of a sudden, I got exposed to the startups. Actually, I was lecturing part-time as well, and one of the students said, "Well, why don't we go check out some startup events? Maybe they could use your consulting." So I went to a couple of events and absolutely just loved being around the startups. Got involved in this World Bank project in the former Yugoslavia. Loved that. And it just snowballed from there. So as I was going through all this, that's where the idea of RaiseLink came up. But that's really my background is I've been training and developing people since I was 17. Actually, at the McDonald's, I was a trainer. And just continued that in every job I've had, whether it was U.S. robotics in the mid-90s, in pharmaceuticals, in between my 2 trips to Austria and back, as a consultant with my own company, or working with thousands of startups from around the world.
That's fantastic. And this is kind of a very similar story I've heard from people in terms of like your background. It kind of eventually you just fall into place of like where you're supposed to be, like you were working with startups and then it's just like the idea comes to you and it's just like, this just makes sense. This is just, this just fits, in terms of your sales background, do you have any words of wisdom for the startups out there, the small businesses, the people that are getting started off the ground, words of wisdom about sales, about, the obstacles to maybe avoid when you're starting a new business?
Sure. So first thing is, and I know this is something that most people don't think of or think can always wait. If you're going to invest money in the software from day one, it's a CRM system. Doesn't have to be expensive. There's some out there that are $10 a month that it'll do. But unless you have an absolute photographic memory, which I don't know, 0.1% of the population or 0.01, a small percentage have that. There is no way you're going to remember everyone you meet along the way. There's absolutely no way. Yeah. LinkedIn is good. It only does so much. As you get to a couple hundred people, trying to keep track of them in Excel or a notebook doesn't work anymore either. So just from day one, get an Excel, get a CRM and use it. Set it up, use that. Why? Because as you have an idea for a startup or a business, the first thing you start doing is talking to people about it to find out, is there a need? Hopefully you're doing this, right? Is there a need? If there is a need, what should that solution look like? Every one of these people you're talking to are your potential first customers. Yeah. So many startups and entrepreneurs will go out there and talk to people. Maybe they get a business card, but half the people don't carry business cards anymore. So somehow you've got to collect that data. Now, I can pull up my contact list in my phone and have 10 or 15,000 people in there from the last 15 years. I'm not going to remember all their names, and how am I going to find them? So the ones that I need to stay in contact with, they go into a CRM. I set reminders. I do whatever it is so that I stay in touch with them. And that's the power of a CRM. It's not necessarily that you're keeping track and documenting, but it's that you have the ability to say, okay, I can tag this person as being interested in, or having the problem that I'm trying to solve, so that when I have an idea about the solution, I can call up these people and go in and present the solution. And if I talk to 100 people about their problem, out of that 100, I'm going to find 80 that really have that problem. So I go back to them, that 80, with the solution statement or some drawings or whatever it is of my solution, and 60 are going to say, that's something that I might be interested in. So you're building your funnel from day one at the idea stage, so that when you do have your product and you're ready to beta test, you're not going out there and finding your beta test users. You're going back to these people and saying, hey, I've got the solution. I'm now ready to bring people on. Will you use it? Right? And as you keep going, not only is it the 100 you first talk to, but you add another 100 here and 100 there, because you're going to events and you're researching this and you're looking for more people that might want your product or service that you're developing. Right. So keep track of them. A CRM is the best thing. The other thing that I would recommend is more about you and how you treat people. We all know that we all are trying to sell something in the end. Everyone sells, right? When you meet somebody that you're interested in, your significant other, whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, the first thing we always do as people is we ask open-ended questions. So what do you like? What kind of movies are you interested in? What kind of food do you like? Right? After a while, and this varies depending on how interested you are in the other person, these open-ended questions turn into closed questions or statements, to the point where it's, we having fish for dinner tonight, right? Versus, what would you like for dinner tonight? Or what do you think about having fish for dinner? And in the sales training I've done, when I talked about asking open-ended questions and how to do that, the homework I give everyone is go home to your significant other, your kids, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, your brother, sister, parents. Only ask them open-ended questions tonight. And out of a group of 10 people, they'll come back the next day and there'll be one that'll say, I had the most romantic evening I've had in 15 years. There'll be another one that'll say, my husband asked, what kind of voodoo am I learning in that training session? Stop asking me so many questions. But the point is, whether it's the romance or the voodoo, people actually take notice of that. And they say, the voodoo ones say, but we still had a connection that we haven't had in a long time. So, or my daughter opened up to me in a way that she has never opened up to me before. All of these things come back. So the point of this is not just that you have to be interested in the other person. Forget about what you want first. You have to be interested in them, because everyone, our brains are all thinking about something else, right? You walk into a shop, somebody says, hey, how you doing? It's like, autopilot. Yeah, good. How are you? Nobody cares. You keep walking. What are you looking for today? You're in the chair section at IKEA. I'm looking for a table. I mean, don't ask me the obvious stuff. Ask me where my brain is. If I'm looking at chairs, and I'm feeling the back of my chair, say, oh, what do you think of the back of the chair? So what this boils down to is asking appropriate open questions where you're treating every individual like they have a brain, which comes to what you ask them. Think about it for a second, and a heart. We all want to be treated equally, and we all want to be treated with respect, both that we have a brain and that we're a human being. And that goes for any culture around the world. I've worked with people from 150 countries, and I asked them, here's some American in whatever country I was in. Am I saying things that don't work in your country? And I've never had anybody say no. Maybe the step, the process, the pace might be different, but the bottom line is treat everyone like they have a brain and heart.
So beautifully said. Brilliant words of knowledge, both on the CRM aspect and the treating of the way we treat other people. Chris, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Before we close,
sure.
Is there anything that you want to, last things that you want to, any plugs you want to make, any events that are coming up for maybe you or RaiseLink? And also, what's the best way for people, if they have additional questions for you, to reach out and get connected to you?
Sure. So I would just say, RaiseLink is RaiseLink.co. Our email, the general email is hello@raiselink.co. And I would encourage startups, if you're out there and you want to go through an investment readiness tool, that's RaiseLink. Your information will be shared with ecosystem partners that we have on the platform. But we're literally just launching. We've had a couple of successful ecosystem partner users using the platform now for a while, and we're taking that information, updating a few marketing messages, and getting ready to go fully launched live. So I don't want to say that you're going to find your next accelerator or your next investor on RaiseLink, because we're just not at that stage yet. But it's a great investment readiness tool for startups. If you are an ecosystem partner, an accelerator, an incubator that's looking to improve your application screening and selection process, give me a call, send me an email, let me know. Happy to demo it for you. It's really a simple process to use. You create your profile, everything's populated, everything is point and click, never more than one click to get to what you want. And it's super easy. In fact, we just had one accelerator said this was the first time we've gone through an application screening and review committee voting where not one person said something about the process. Everyone said it was super smooth. So we're getting quotes soon that'll be on the website, stuff like that. So I would say that's would be my ask of the audience. In terms of the data and what we collect on the startups, it is basically everything you would expect in a extended pitch and Q&A. No proprietary data. You control everything you put on RaiseLink. So, and if our longest questions are 40 characters, there's not a lot of room for you to put much proprietary information on there.
Sure.
So don't worry about that. We take security of your information very, very, it's very important. We want to respect that. And with our growth plan and where we're going, that'll be evident to everyone in the future as we add more features and modules onto RaiseLink.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you again. Everyone, go check out RaiseLink. That's RaiseLink.co. It's a great platform. I checked it out myself, and I love it. Chris, thank you again for all of your time today. We really appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome, Matt. Thank you.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to today's CloudSapio Cybersecurity Sync podcast. We will see you all next time. Thank you.
Cheers.